Joining me right now is a man who has gotten in front of this several times. Florida Senator Marco Rubio is here. He is a member of the Foreign Relations and Appropriations Committees and Vice Chairman of the Select Intelligence Committee. Senator, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for being here. And I want to start there because I have the letter that you sent, and along with your colleagues, asking the investment board, the Federal Thrift Savings, why they want to have this open mutual fund window to allow Chinese companies to be part of the thrift and increase the number of Chinese companies there. Tell me about the concerns around this and whether or not this is happening.
Well, let's start with just a general concern that I think applies to all the entire market, and that is the concern that these companies in China do not, at this moment anyways, follow the same requirements that any other companies that are listed follow in terms of transparency and auditing requirements. So you're risking American money into companies that we know very little about and, in fact, refuse to comply. Add to that the irony of this, okay? A lot of the people that are on for example, if you're in the Army or the Navy, the armed forces of this country, defending this country, and you're putting money aside in this equivalent of a 401k, and that they are turning around and investing that money, capitalizing companies in China controlled by the military that are designing the weapons that are one day going to be used to attack you or kill your children when they grow up and go serve in the military. That's outrageous. So I think there's just a very simple common sense line here, and that is that why are we using American money to fund companies that are building the weapons that are being designed to destroy and kill American troops?
Yeah. It's also making it clear that it's not going to be screening these mutual funds for U.S. sanctions. Some of these companies have been sanctioned already by the United States, and yet our military men are going to be investing and funding their growth?
Well, I think this is unfortunately a part, it's controlled by a board of investors and investment experts and specialists. And unfortunately, we've seen this now across equities markets with people who think or believe that their only job and the only consideration is, can I get a good return for our investors? And that's a very important consideration. There's no doubt about it. But I think there needs to be some common sense here. Now, it's sometimes the same people, on the other hand, that have no problem divesting investment in companies that are involved in fossil fuels or in a gun maker or in some other woke priority that they might have. They have no problem using, divesting from those companies or from people like that. But at the same time, they have no interest in not putting money into the hands of companies that are controlled by the military of a country that intends to overtake America, become the world's most powerful country, and in that process threaten our troops stationed in the Asia-Pacific region and, frankly, at some point anywhere in the world.
I mean, I thought this was a bipartisan issue. Can Congress do anything to stop this? I mean, you've been pushing to not just ban investments in Chinese companies for our federal employees, but also overall for Americans, particularly because of what you just said, they're not following our audits. Can Congress stop this?
Yeah, so it's a bipartisan issue, meaning everybody, or generally everybody, agrees. It's not a bipartisan priority. In fact, even in my own party, it's not a priority for everybody. I think a lot of people would agree with a position, but whether they're interested in focusing on it and zoning and really tuning into it and working on a daily basis, there are a lot of reasons why people aren't. Either they don't take the threat seriously, or they're listening to some of these people that come from Wall Street over here and tell us not to mess around with these investments and give you all the runaround as to why we're exaggerating and it's not a big deal. So, yes, it's a bipartisan position, but unfortunately it is not a bipartisan priority.
Yeah, you also have a Chinese CCP-controlled company wanting to acquire Forbes, which is interesting. We already have the CCP propaganda on other social media, but now they want to own Forbes magazine. Is CFIUS looking at that?
Yeah, I don't know if CFIUS is looking at that. I think it's really interesting. A couple days ago, the news came out. China has been censoring Hollywood for a long time. So that's why you don't see any movies with a Chinese government communist villain in them. And so, but the other day in this new Spider-Man movie, the Chinese demanded that the Statue of Liberty be taken out of one of the final scenes of that movie, and Sony said, no, we won't do it. So they walked away from the ability to have that movie distributed in China. And so it took a Japanese company to do what American companies would not do, and that is refuse to bend the knee to the Chinese Communist Party on censorship. And they should be applauded for it, and I think it puts to shame all these companies in Hollywood that are constantly doing whatever China tells them.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was actually also impressed. All right, let me move on to the other issues of the day. Senator, a fence is now going up around the Supreme Court after the protests that you've witnessed breaking out following the Supreme Court draft leak. Justice Alito, the author of the draft, also canceled a public event. From the start, Democrats have been using this draft to campaign for the midterms. What are your thoughts on this leaked draft? And is this another dirty trick? Because the Democrats feel they're going to get slaughtered in November, and they're trying to change voter minds about the Republicans.
Well, a couple things. The first is that there's no doubt that Democrats do not want this election to be about immigration. They don't want it to be about crime. They don't want it to be about inflation. They don't want it to be about these things that are impacting real people every single day, because they're doing a terrible job at all three of those. In fact, they're all going to get worse. Inflation is going to continue to get worse. Crime continues to surge around this country. And we're going to have a massive illegal immigration surge again this summer due to Joe Biden's inviting people to come here illegally. They don't want it to be about any of that. My sense is that this leak was a strategically planned one, designed to get ahead of something and to generate exactly what you're seeing, primarily to try to intimidate these justices. And that's what you're seeing now, an effort to intimidate them. You know, there's a website out there now, of my understanding, we were told yesterday, a website that identifies the addresses of the 5 justices that they're targeting, where they live. Here's a map on how to get there, and asking people or encouraging people to go to their homes and try to intimidate them there. So clearly, I mean, this was designed to do that. Not to mention that it's a direct attack, I mean, on an institution. It's funny that what we've learned in the last few days, I think we should have learned this before, is that the only time that Democrats want to defend institutions or consider a Supreme Court ruling the law of the land is when they agree with it and when it furthers their political aims. Any other time, then they feel free not just to criticize the court, but the justices by name, attack them personally. And so that's the world we live in today. And I hope they find who did this, but this person probably not going to hide very long. They're going to get a show on MSNBC, maybe even land some pretty well-paid gigs, a book deal, and they'll be a hero on the far left. So I'm not sure why they're hiding. They should just come forward now and admit it was them.
Well, it's pretty extraordinary to see the poisoning of now the Supreme Court after we saw the politics poisoning in virtually every agency, frankly, from the FBI to the CIA to the Department of Defense. But real quick, I want to ask you about your bill that would prohibit employers from deducting expenses related to their employees' travel costs, gender-affirming care. You're taking on the woke corporation, Senator.
Yeah, I don't believe there should be taxpayer funding for abortion. That's a widespread position in our country, that we shouldn't be using government money to do that. When you tell a company you can deduct the cost of sending someone to get an abortion in another state, you're in essence providing them that assistance through government funding, and we shouldn't be doing it.
Senator, it's great to catch up with you. Thanks so much for your insights on all of the above. We'll see you soon, Senator. Thank you, sir. Senator Marco Rubio this morning.